I grew up in a tiny town in Saskatchewan by the name of Belcaris. When I was 17, I did the census, and there were 775 people there. It looks smaller now, but there might be as many people, just really hardly any businesses. It's in Treaty 4 territory, right next to Pepicas's Little Black Bear, File Hills, and Star Blanket. And many of those places have morphed their names, but that's the names as they were when I was a kid. And I think when I was in my early teens, I sort of thought about going into medicine, and it kind of got discouraged a bit. Not by my mother or my immediate family, but it kind of got discouraged a bit. And then I went off to university, and it was a huge change for a kid from a little wee town to go off to Ontario to university. And I got discouraged a little bit. And then so I did what I did. And then I decided that I was in a canoe trip, and I had a kid sitting in front of me fall over and hit their head on the Wanagon, which is a box you carry food in. And it's in a box partly to protect it from bears. And I decided that I was really curious about what heat stroke was, and that I was a condition that was both of the mind and the brain, and I wanted to know more about that. So while I went off to graduate school, I did prerequisites I hadn't done before, and applied, and because I decided that my graduate studies in psychology were limited because they didn't actually deal with the body as well as the brain. And so I wanted that understanding of how those two creatures interact. That was my curiosity. And I certainly studied a lot in cities. I went to university for 13 years, but I never felt at home in a city. And I always turned down fellowship opportunities in order to pursue a career that I could do in rural medicine. I think his career choice is really, I think I alluded to the fact that I'm a family practice anesthesiologist, and I was practicing in Yellowknife, and my work was narrowing down towards more and more anesthesiology plus psychotherapy and obstetrics and the travels to the communities, but less and less family practice. And I turned down another opportunity to go into a fellowship in anesthesiology, and I decided that I should move to a place where I could do more family practice, which meant doing less anesthesiology. And I made steps towards that. So, because I decided if I was going to narrow that down before I was 40, I really should take that fellowship position that I could have taken. It was a different time then than it is now. Now it's a harder path to go back. But it would have been fun to go back, but I knew I did not want to live in a city, and at that point in time, there really weren't fellowship anesthesiologists in rural settings. Having grown up in a small community, I think I seek out the sense of people knowing who I am without my having to tell them who I am. I grew up in a culture in which talking about your accomplishments is considered boasting, and was strongly discouraged. And so that's a culture that in order to progress in an urban society, you have to cultivate the ability to talk about your accomplishments and make it natural, so it's not boasting. And I never really mastered that, I don't think, because I can boast and I can not talk about my accomplishments, but I'm not sure I meet that middle ground very well, which makes people hear what I've done without it being boastful. And it's more than that, of course. I do like the sense of being known. I like the sense of community. And I know you can create that in larger areas, but I also like the sense of space and the privacy and just having the grandness of the land be a part of who I am. I think I was really well taught. I think I was very fortunate in my teaching. I think one of the pearls I gained early on was that one of my big problems was that I thought that the world was fair, and the world isn't fair. And so I learned that fairly early on, but I think that's a fairly common thing. I think that it's important to gain confidence in your skills and in your ability to be who you are, and that's an important part of your work life. And so learning who you are fairly young allows you to use the skills you gain to their best effect, because everyone applies the art of medicine a little bit differently. Although hopefully we get a pretty common skill set, and we do on average. The longitudinal relationship that you develop with people that lasts for generations, whether you're delivering longitudinal generations within a family, or just following someone through from tragically their birth to their death, or following multiple generations of the same family through from birth to death. That relationship piece is huge. And it's probably the most joyful part of medicine, is the relationship part. It's also the most tragic part, but it is the part of medicine that connects us, our humanity, to our patients. The technical aspects of it, given that, I work emergency, deliver babies, do anesthesiology, I was on the board of the Acupuncture Foundation of Canada, my hands have a lot of technical skills backed up by a lot of science and knowledge. And so those technical skills are absolutely delightful. It's like cooking. It's like playing in the sand, one of the big complaints about me is that I have too many cookbooks and that I never use them. And I say, well, I've read them. Why do I need a cookbook? I understand what the ingredients do. And I think that putting the technical aspects together really leave us in a position to use the practical applications of science in the longitudinal relationship. And that's what brings the real joy. So my big goal in any of the work that I'm involved with, that I help supervise for people, and the clinic that I own, is that it's a happy place, that people want to come to work, the patients want to be there, the doctors want to be there, and while dealing with tragedy, people smile. And you can't fake that. It has to be real. So we bring the dogs to work, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I really think that as people carve off, I'm going to call them subspecialties within family medicine, because they don't have, and there's lots of different reasons for it. Okay, I was about to give a reason, and I realized that that's not true for everybody. For whatever reasons, they carve off subspecialties within family medicine. They're missing the true joy of applying those different subspecialties of family medicine in a longitudinal fashion. I think some of our rural specialists are getting more of that now than our younger generation and some of our older generation. But then some people get out of rural medicine because the rural specialists are in a position of dealing with people longitudinally now. And I think that we need to both tell people how much fun it is to practice medicine and why we don't quit because it's fun, and that we also need to tell people that it's time to support our specialists. That's my political plug for the day, is that we really need to support our specialists in a different way who work rurally. And I say that in part because as a family practice anesthesiologist, I live in two worlds. I live in the specialist world and in the family practice world. And very consciously have chosen that. Being able to teach people how to be a little bit differently in most of the aspects of how they interact with people. It doesn't have to be a big shift. It doesn't change the person, the personality, or the context. But a little shift in how people are in that space is probably an incredibly important way to change society, if each and every person has the opportunity to learn that little shift. I think the relationship piece is where we are able to touch the classic 7 generations. Because if you're carrying, I'm thinking of one family where I've cared for 5 generations, delivered the little ones, and have cared for the 4 generations above in this particular family. And I'm aware that because I've been invited, as I do less clinical work, I'm invited into more of the social aspects of the community, and I'm part of a drum pack where we make drums. And in a sense, it's a reconciliation drum pack, although it's not been called that. And some of the elders that I'm making drums with are related to some of the most tragic stories that I know. And it will make a difference to the children and the grandchildren who are yet to come of the children who are entering puberty. And so I think that the relationship piece is what has the most permanent impact on the health of the families, the individuals. But without the technical aspect of it, none of that would have happened.